Does it? Okay. You know, as a business coach, I've had, I think, about 50 to 60 clients in total over the time. And there were two questions I could not resolve. And the first one was, some clients I would meet and they would totally agree that something was necessary to be done. And then the next week I would meet them, it wasn't done. You understand why you need to do this, right? Yes, next week it wasn't done. And I did not understand why would you be such an incredible procrastinator where you admit that it's necessary, right? But more annoyingly, because those people I would lose pretty quickly because, hey, I'm quite an expensive personal trainer that you basically don't do the work. But then the other ones, I had people that are really successful initially. I mean, some quadrupled their business, but then they hit a plateau. And as far as I could tell, everything was done right. Why is it staggering? Maybe I suck as a coach. I don't know. Well, yeah, there was some results, right? So why is that? And then I was approached by a former client of mine, one of the hardest to serve, I won't mention the name, who had that same experience, you know, rapid growth, plateau, stopped coaching, came back, felt way different. Said, oh, I found it, Rene, you should try this out. I'm amazed, and we're back in coaching, and the whole plateau is gone, it's taking off again. But it's so much more pleasant to deal with, and yet I would say it's an iron fist now covered with velvet instead of just an iron fist, because this is a person that you don't want to cross. So, if I have to coach you, I better read up into this. So I read the book and I was blown away. So I then signed up, went through training to become a PQ coach, and I decided I need to share this. I have already brought a couple of clients through it. Some of them were the worst self-sabotage people I found, that very first category. Halfway the course, they did not show up anymore. Well, then I can't help you. But the other two say, wow, this is amazing, and I see the effects. And my life changed. So I thought I'm going to share my insights. And here are my goals for today. Okay, first, I want you, and I'm going to read this, understand how you and people in your team are typically self-sabotaging. There's a mechanic behind it, and there is a reason why you do it. And the hallmarks that reveal, hey, I'm self-sabotaging. That's what I learned. I catch myself now. And then I wanted you to discover the way you are most likely to self-sabotage. That's why I asked you to do that test, right? It will rank your most likely saboteurs. I'm going to explain what they are, but that's what it was. So then I want you to also realize that there are 5 thought patterns in your brain that are wired totally differently. I'm going to explain them. Let's call it our SAGE. But they are positive and constructive and rarely, if ever, lead to self-sabotage. And if you want more, what to do next, because you are, well, except for some guests here, you know I'm full, I can't take clients. So how the heck am I explaining something and then leave you hanging? Well, I won't, but it might not be me. And some of you that have been with me for a long time might remember that we did a workshop called Self Sabotage, which was this one. In fact, I had a world famous author here in Winchester to speak to us about it. And so that was a different system. And I still believe in it, so I will try to explain that there are different types of self-sabotage. So the one we are going to talk about today is the positive intelligence version. That is for normal people. So everybody here, I can guarantee you, you are self-sabotaging just like I do. But it's not, how would I say, it's not so bad, but enough to derail your business at one point, to hit that plateau. So in other words, we do self-sabotage that typically is hidden for the outside world. We just don't realize that this is self-sabotage. That's that. And the way to fix it is what they call behavioral. In other words, a set of simple techniques, things you can do. It is not laying on the couch with a therapist or writing a letter to your abusive father who's died now. And the real clinical therapy is not this. This is the system that is used for executive coaching in the top 500 companies. So this is very high level managers that deal with this. They want practical, tell me what to do and I'll do it stuff. That's what this is, okay? This, the stop self-sabotage thing that I had, and I at that time didn't know any better, is for people in psychological distress. So in other words, real therapists, people that have studied in our clinical whatever, they use the word self-sabotage different than we do in day-to-day life. For them, self-sabotage is, you start to self-mutilate yourself, or if you start to be an alcoholic, that leads to self-sabotage, but that's a different type. It's visible to others. It's that employee that you said, show up on time, and yet 5 times in a row will show up late and you have to fire them. Very visible self-sabotage. That is usually due to extreme low self-esteem, and the only way to fix that is they have unresolved negative feelings. They feel they are worthless, or whatever the reason is. There is something inside has broken. That's the only way for me to say it. And that is almost a full therapy. And yes, I was crazy enough to learn how to do that, but I've decided I'm not a therapist, so I prefer to stay away from that. Because I do think that's for the experts. I actually say, you know what, see, Ryan. But what I want to talk about today is the normal stuff that these high-end executives are using, and that I think is extremely useful for all of us. If I have time left, because I'm going to try to really manage time, I will say what it did for me and how it changed for me, but let's go over it. So, to start to go into the PQ stuff, let's start with a real shocking thing. For me, this was shocking. Ready? I fought it with tooth and nail. This could not be true. So here we go. If you, for longer than 1 second, felt stressed, have been angry, or felt ashamed, maybe doubted yourself, felt frustrated, I know when I'm frustrated with an employee or a client, felt guilty, felt that somebody was to blame, or maybe yourself. Have anyone had anxiety? Or just feel numb. I know I'm supposed to feel bad about it, but just don't feel it. Or, what did I, oh yeah, look down on people, be condescending. Any other negative emotions? Well, that is actually the sign that you are in active self-sabotage. And I thought, no, forgive me my friends, no effing way. I should feel guilty if I screw up. Come on, what's this? And if I suck, if I fail to hit a goal because I just sucked, come on, what's that? I should beat myself up because I dropped the ball. Yeah, I'm going to explain to you how that is exactly how you make things worse. Self-sabotage is, what the guy is doing here. So, some definitions. I'm going to teach you about 2 types of intelligence. There is positive intelligence, and that means when your thoughts are constructive, and you feel happy when you are trying to grow things. Negative is you're in a response. It's fear-centered. There is, so all those feelings I just mentioned are what they call negative intelligence. They both have a very important function in your life, because that's the hard thing to learn, that our self-sabotage has a function that is backfiring on us. So, I looked into this, and there was a big research. 275,000 people and teams had to declare what their goals were, and then were measured, did they reach them, and then they had to do all type of tests to figure out what's the best predictor of success. And that's the top 500 companies can do, right? So if people were not hitting professional targets, despite everybody saying you should be able to, and they were not people mentioning they don't hit their health goals, right? Anyone overweight here? Or saying, why is my relationship with a person that's important to me suffering? We started out so positive, right? Those things, where they had all declared they wanted to be successful. They were really working to do the right thing. So under that condition, 275, this is one of the biggest psychological whatever success tests ever done. And what came out is ultimately the positive intelligence, which is, it's a test you can do, and it's, if you scored 75 or higher, then it turned out positive thoughts are the strongest predictor of success. Now that is weird. I'm Dutch. Maybe you know that my country is below sea level, and if somebody says that dike looks weak, we're not going to say, oh, we'll be all right, we're positive people, just you doom thinker. We actually rush to fix that thing because, you know, I don't want to drown. So from my perspective, I was raised with just be bloody serious. And in fact, there has been other clinical research that says people that are depressed are the most honest people in the world. They are the most realistic. So now you know, in order to be successful, you have to be non-realistic. That's bizarre, right? But that came out of that. And the interesting thing is, so what is this? What does it mean, 75%? So positive thoughts have to dominate for more than 3/4 of your time. And in the 275,000 people, 80% scored below. Okay? Which means only 20% of teams and individuals operate at their potential. Because I think if you have that many people in your test, we can probably generalize this. So 80% at a point in time. So sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not. And so then the question is, that is weird. Why would that be the case, right? So to explain, in science they have a thing called factor analysis. You try to find the root cause of something, and to give a simple example to make the point, you all know there are millions of colors. The root factor of colors is just these three. Right, so that's what root factor analysis is. If I would keep analyzing colors, I would open and say, in the end they're all formed out of these three. So if they went with all this, what was going on with these 275,000 people, why were they successful or not, what is the root cause? So what is at the root of optimizing or sabotaging? Wellness, performance, and relationships. What is it? Why? Because, okay, positive, what does that mean? And so they came that from an emotional perspective, there are only 10 negative response patterns. So when people said the atmosphere was negative, it was always one or more of what we call saboteurs. I put a name on a thought pattern. Pretend they are persons, okay, in my head. If the photographer Laurie Bridgewood was here, she would say it's the voices in my head. Yes, the voices in your head. And then there are only 5 that you can say are positive mental patterns. And once people knew this, we're going to do something with it. So this is what's going on. Inside of you there are 2 brains fighting for dominance. There is a brain focused on survival. Makes sense? I mean, especially right now we live in a fairly peaceful society compared to history. But there was always a threat to us. So the survival brain, and it's literally in different parts of your brain, has the negative thoughts. Because if there is danger, I should be scared and I should respond. So it's the fear side driven of your brain, right? And then the thrive part is the love side of your brain. Love not just for other people, but for exploration, for, you know, have you ever had that you were working and you were in a flow, the time just passed by quickly, whatever. That's love. Love for something you're doing, right? So that's literally another part of your brain. And the question is, which of these dominate? What's the method behind it? Because what we noticed therefore is that 20% that was successful, this dominated more than 75% of the time. And so to break it down, 10 thought patterns here, 5 patterns there. I'll get into that. So I made you do the test, and if you can take 2, it's 2 pieces. There are some descriptions. You can hand that out. Actually, you can give that to me. When you did that test, you should get the result. And the thing that is important is what are your top saboteurs. If you manage to weaken your top saboteurs, you actually start to weaken the smaller ones as well. So there is a description here of some of the saboteurs. And the interesting thing what you need to know is the way you sabotage yourself is by overuse of a strength. which is what's in this form I handed out. Also, these tests are relative. If I score an 8 on something and you score a 5, doesn't mean that my 8 is higher than you. So if I am a hyper-controller and I score 8, and you are a hyper-controller with 5, then you might still be a more controlling personality than I am. It's just for yourself, okay? I handed this out. All right. So what are saboteurs? Okay? A saboteur, the thought pattern, is an overuse of our biggest strength. I'll explain how that happened. But you were born with, you developed yourself with some incredible strength. If you really like to be nice to people, you have a lot of empathy, that probably turning you into a pleaser, for instance. If you are somebody who is really capable to set goals and take action, you turn into a hyperachiever. And the problem with it is this. Because it's your natural strength that you overuse, this saboteur is convincing you that that is needed. Because it's what made you successful from your perception. That you are leaving a lot of dead bodies, by the way. And people hate you or whatever, it doesn't matter. I hit my goal because I was tough. It's an example of, I think I needed to be tough, therefore I can't be successful without it. So that's what a saboteur is. Your greatest natural strength, and the saboteur will really pretend, see, you need me. And I'm gonna explain the number one saboteur here. Power to hit goals. Okay? Hyper-rational, here's my number one. If you learn that you can outsmart things, that when you really figure out how things work, then you can get out of trouble. Then the whole world should just be rational. Emotions, I can't understand emotions, they are irrational. So like Mr. Spock, that is highly illogical. So I ignore emotions, I just do what is the logical right thing to do. Why is my wife angry at me? Because you lose empathy. And I realized that I have lost quite some empathy for things, so one of my other things in the course was to try to fix that. So there's the hyper-rational thing, it's the power overuse. Hyper-vigilant, yeah, the sky is falling. Don't you realize this can go very, very, very wrong if you don't take action? If we lose this client, but he is related to that client, so they're probably all going to leave us now, and woe is us. We need to take action. It's, I would say, the famous Murphy, you know, with Murphy's Law. Murphy was a hypervigilant. What can go wrong will go wrong. The problem is that you sometimes cry wolf too often. People don't like that. Or those people can be very draining to others. Because that intensity, that focus on danger, makes them draining personalities to be around with. So if that's your number one thing, the hypervigilant, and by the way, being vigilant is good. This world has some rotten sides to it, okay? I'm not, again, this is overuse of strength. Then we have the pleaser. Yeah, again, wonderful core strength. To be nice to people, to care for people. But a pleaser is when you, as a standard way of fixing issues, is try to do it by pleasing, even if you don't want to. So pleasers are doing nice stuff for other people, and after a while you can get a chip on your shoulder. Why don't they see that I do all these things? Pleasers are people that get abused by others because the natural response is to do nice things for others, even when they shouldn't. And so you see that pleaser can become a saboteur. Then we have the restless personality. Those typically extreme creative people. I innovate myself out of every problem. But restless means they don't fit the complete things, they start the next thing, they start the next thing, they start the next thing. Great distraction. And if they would have the right team around them that can deal with it and actually execute it, by the way, amazing power. But if it's yourself, that's why they fail, that's why they ultimately flame out. because there is a point where you have to complete things. So that's the restless personality. Then we have the stickler. When your strength is that you're very precise, but now you're a perfectionist, and the only thing you demand is perfection. Do I have to explain that that is very stifling for other people? That's what the stickler does. And it's also basically better is the enemy of good and perfect is the enemy of better. It has to be perfect. That's what the stickler does. And then of course we also have the victim. And victim sounds real negative, but remember, a victim, the strength of a victim is that they are more naturally inclined to really understand their own feelings and what's going on in their own mind. And because of that, they were capable as a child, better than others, to play this, don't you see I am in pain, I'm hurt. Whereas for instance the hyper-rational will not ever show to the world that I am in pain because I'm in pain is nonsense. Unless I see broken bone. Well, so the victim won't do that, but then they have they play this help card the whole time, and that's, of course, other people find it annoying. So, again, overuse of strength, and what's actually, it's more complicated than this, because what really happens is, they combine. So, for instance, if I have a stickler and a controller, then I'm one of those micromanagers that says, I want perfection and you must exactly do it the way I do and I will step in if you don't. So these people, if this combination is strong with you, I can assure you, you struggle with delegating tasks. Because nobody is ever up to your standard of how you have to do things up to a certain level. Right? There is another combination, I mean there are endless combinations, but if you are hyper-rational and hyper-achiever, we set a goal, and we're going to go there, and we're going to do it very logical, and if it sucks, well, you know, life sucks, but this is what we do. So it's going to be, I would say this is the ruthless combination. You would have a restless avoider. These are the people that, if I'm an avoider, you know, I like to procrastinate, not do things, but if I'm restless, I can master it by showing you I'm so busy, I just started this, I'm working on that now, and really not it's hard to see that these are actually avoiding work because they look so busy. So you see how these saboteurs can play some damage on you. A pleased victim that I've ever met people that go for this. Don't you see what I am doing for you? I'm working so hard to help you out. And you don't seem to appreciate that. That's because they probably do, but they also hold up the victim card. So that's combination. So I want to give one example so you see how it really could go in daily life. Imagine so this is a coaching example. A business was not hitting the results, and so the judge says, this sucks, we need to do better. The hyper-rational says, well, we have another service that makes a lot of money right now, there's a lot of market demand, we should just add that service, that makes sense actually to do so. Okay, but then the stickler says, it's not on our website, we give a professional image, it has to be clean and nice and worked out, so we can't do that yet. And the avoider says, see, there's nothing we can do yet because it's not on our website yet on the right way to the right standard. So, and now the judge says, what the heck, the bad results keep coming, why is nothing happening? So that's how you see a negative spiral of interaction between these personas. And again, voices in your head, whatever you call it, it's a thought pattern. So, there is another element to this. And this is what makes it real hard to deal with it. Because we have what they call mirror neurons. In order to survive, we as a group have developed the instinct to respond to somebody in the group that suddenly feels threatened. So if Scott suddenly would look around and say, whatever, is he smoke, or whatever, everybody would immediately respond, feel threatened, because somebody here basically alerts the group we're under a threat, right? So, and I need to give you an example for how that works, because it explained a lot to me. You watch me, and I'm going to give you the exact same data, so the same words, but I bet you will get a different message. we are going to take this very seriously. Versus, we are going to take this very seriously. I had a client who drove away a receptionist while I was sitting there, was really angry at the person that the receptionist was on the phone with. Okay, so the receptionist did nothing wrong. He was so angry, he started to shout and whatever. She stood up, left, and never came back. And he said, I don't understand this, Rene, I did not threaten her. I said she did her job. He said, yeah, but your tone, it was scary to be close to you. I bet this happens more often. So, back to this thing, his PQ channel, so we have a data channel, the words. He never used bad words to her or said that she sucked. But that full angry emotion that you think he's going to strangle somebody, that was going with that messaging along was what killed it. And so, you can use nice words, but I will pick up on your emotions. So if you have a team meeting where you are upset, despite the fact that you professionally stick to what you wanted to talk about, if they feel that you are upset, they is the other team members, everybody will mirror and will feed their judge as he's upset, somebody's going on, somebody screwed up, maybe it's me, and call in their saboteurs, and you just damage your meeting. Whereas if somebody is positive, explaining, you get this positive, oh wow, no, this is cool, okay, we have an issue, but guys, we're going to figure out how to do it, what happened, this won't happen again. But then when the leader projects that atmosphere, people will drop their guard and start to switch to the sage pattern. So, a couple examples. For instance, the relationship tension. It typically starts like this. Let's say you get somebody that is very important to you. It started real nice, right? You love to explore that person's character, that they're great. And, but over time, you start to get annoyed by their saboteurs. If you get annoyed by a person who's a stickler or over-controlling, then that starts to create friction. Your judge will jump on it. See, I don't get any breathing room here, or whatever. Now your saboteurs pop up, the other person gets annoyed, and over time you get this. So, know that. So, and here's the rule. The relationship will only stay healthy if this PQ interaction, so the emotion, not your words, the emotion that you have when you have an interaction, is at least 3-to-1. It's at 75%. And the reason for that is this. Survival is important to us. Learning the color combination on a poisonous snake is far more relevant than the color combination on a beautiful butterfly. So negative information has a harder impact because I'm wired to survive. And only if I don't feel threatened, I switch to the positive side. Which means that even if you now and then give your employee a well done thing and then not, but at the same time, if you're about equal, let's put it by giving, okay, this is not right, how could you do that? That's 50-50 is actually perceived as more negative because you do not hit this ratio. Because remember, negative information is hitting their survival center. I might be under threat, I might be losing my job if I keep screwing up. So a compliment actually goes less far than a complaint. Now, I will not say that saboteurs cannot deliver success. Of course they can. It's that the consequences, the side effects are negative. You can push yourself through something, absolutely. Pleasing people can have a wonderful effect. So please understand, survival is short-term get out of trouble, which will work. It just means I need to burn through way more energy to keep going. And here is where that stress comes in, because I need to keep pushing. And so, and try to let me explain then, how did this develop? I mean, it's weird. Why would we all be so incredibly flawed? Besides a religious reason. There is also a very logical explanation. Imagine this. You're a real small child, right? You are 100% dependent on your parents for your survival. If you would realize as a child that your parents are hopelessly flawed human beings, that's crushing. How can I survive? So, my parents are amazing. You remember the small child, as a child, you were, my daddy can lift this thing. That was amazing, right? My parents are amazing. And therefore, if things still go wrong, I'm in pain, well, I am the one who sucks, right? The self-judge is starting to beat the child up. Ooh, but that's crushing. If I would be the only one in the whole world that is all the time sucks, man, I would commit suicide. However, my peers, see, that also, whatever. So you start to point to the other kids who also make mistakes, and then, well, now I suck a little bit less, at least temporarily. Somebody else made a mistake. Nah, you shouldn't. I'm gonna tell. So, right? It's a survival mechanism. And then, what do your parents do, again, who are hopelessly flawed human beings? They see any positive signs of one of your strengths popping up, like you were trying to be nice, or what this wonderful grade you got at school, and so we're saying, yeah, wonderful, wonderful, and then quickly dismiss the child. So, I'm going to do more of that to earn my parents' approval. So that is to give you the 30,000 feet high psychological explanation why we developed saboteurs. It was logical. It's great to have. For one reason, this gets me safe through childhood. My brain is not fully developed yet, I don't understand things. But then you get in early adulthood and now you realize the world is way more complicated and my parents actually, they don't know everything. And that actually should have been the time that we develop, what I would say, the positive intelligence. But we walk around with band-aids. The best way to describe it is, you break your leg, in hospital they put a cast around it, wonderful, and you never remove the cast. So 3 years later you're still walking with a cast. It's got to do something to your leg, okay? That's how we operate, that's where this came from and how that worked. Anyway, so before I move to the other side, the wonderful side, stage part, I have been bombarding you with a lot of things, so, and you've done your test, so before I move on, any questions on what I just told you? Does this make sense? All right.
The one about your parents, what do you explain it as with when you're young, your parents know everything. And then when you become a teenager, your parents know nothing. And then as you get older, the smarter your parents get.
Yeah.
Your kids thought you were smart at one point.
Sorry. Did I mention the thing about the divorce?
So, what's actually happening is you get smarter and wiser yourself and see more things that you didn't see as a child, because also you were going to bed before the real bad stuff was discussed. But the other thing is, you grow up, your brain, it's a muscle, right? You have been developing that judge of yours. And that judge is finally starting to see the flaws of your parents. That's the teenage years. Teenagers can be very judgmental. And whereas when you get older, luckily we more and more also develop naturally that sage side that says, yeah, but it's not always this bad. And then you see, wait, actually, when I started to accuse my parents that they sucked, I did not take into account their circumstances. How were they raised? And so you actually, that wisdom, that sage side starts to tone that down, and now you start to see, actually, my parents did a decent job based on the cast that was given to them. And also, by the way, people, a lot of research like this is only fairly recent that we can look in how a brain develops. We have so much advantages compared to the generations before us. If I look to my parents and the parents of my wife, I'd say they barely talk to each other about their feelings or other things. It's just their communication sucked compared to what I have with my children. So, not perfect, don't get me wrong. But, any other questions on this? If you understand the saboteur part, then next part. So, there is a thrive brain, so when I don't feel threatened, I used a picture of an eastern sage. And there are 5 main thought patterns, and the training that I went to go through is to constantly try to switch to the steps that I see here. So when something happens, empathize with. So empathize is really the love part. Why do they do this? Even when somebody does something really wrong, how do they feel about it? How's the other person affected? You have to really start to feel what other people feel, because that's how you connect. And then, instead of jumping to conclusions by something, how to fix things, you need to learn how to explore. So what were the circumstances? I do this a lot in coaching sessions when people tell me something wasn't done correct. I want to know, did they have the right tools? How were their instructions? There are, depending on the situation, give me more information about the situation. So I don't want to jump to how do we fix it. You have to learn to look at the problem from as many sides as possible. Did this happen more often? Right? Are questions I ask. Because that is a sage power, to just try to get a full picture. Instead of, what your judge would like to do is jump to a conclusion and accuse. Then you go to innovate. Innovation is, yeah. By the way, if you love to learn new things, that's actually that exploration part in your brain. Innovate is, okay, there might be multiple ways to address it, to skin the cat, and I learned wonderful techniques. By the way, why would you want to skin a cat? It's a weird saying, but that's my explorative mind, yeah. Maybe it's from a different time, or it's Chinese saying. And then you go, and then we have the navigate. So this is how, if your judge initially says this is wrong, you should move to navigate. So navigate is discernment. It's, you know, when I talk to Tony and he has to make a big decision, he would say, I need to pray about this. That's not a rushed conclusion, it is trying to discern. So what navigate means is you do that based on meaning and purpose. What's the right thing to do? So this is where this whole thing gets ethical. Yeah, I showed love, but it doesn't mean that I can let things go. So don't get me wrong, the sage is not passive at all. It's just more understanding, but we have to make a decision. But it's not going to be rushed ever. And I do it knowing how people feel about it and what the circumstances were and whatever. But in the end, I have to ask myself, what is the right thing? And then, the final thing, you have felt it, right, when you were working on stuff, to activate is to stick to that state of flow, to get into action, do things. And part of the training was to, how do you keep that going? So, I had the 10 negative thought patterns, which is the judge, and the 9 others, and the 9 is a unique mix based on who you are. And then everybody should have these 5 positive patterns. There is a 6th thing that can trigger it, which is what I call the sage perspective. When something bad happens, and I was really trying to drill this into me, is, okay, sucks, but how can I turn this into an opportunity? If life gives me lemons, you know the saying, what do I do? If I just lost a big client, that's painful, okay, that sucks. I don't want to lose big clients, but I only twice in my history as a coach fired somebody. One because I was obnoxious, I don't want to use the word, and the other because the Self Sabotage meant it was almost unethical for me to keep asking for money. A person that needed to fire his brother in the business and couldn't do it, and the business went bankrupt. So that's when I said, I can't be your coach, I can't help you. But anyway, if you lose your big client, that sucks, right? And so, but maybe you can learn from it and say, but what caused this? What could we have done different so that the next client will get a better experience? I will get stronger because of this. So this constant switch to, there must be something that I can take from this and turn it into better. Because the moment you start to truly ask this question, your brain shifts from that negativity, that woe is me, we suck, and you diffuse the judge, your accuser, by focusing on that sage side that says, let's explore, but let's innovate on this. You know, so that's, yeah, again, there was a lot of training for me, and it's getting better. I'm not saying it's easy. So this is another thing, stop waiting for happiness, it's a lie. the world says you will finally be happy when you have found your wonderful partner, when you graduate from college, or when you hit the next deal or whatever. It always keeps you busy. This is what you have to remember. If you are happy, that means it's the sage state of mind. Only the sage feels happiness. The judge will never feel happiness. A short moment, that condescending, ha, you got it coming, that's not happiness. That is, I only know the German word, Schadenfreude, but it's a well-known word here, right? Unhappiness, therefore, is linked to survival. One thing this course, I am so much happier, and I've seen it, the people who went through the course, because you learn those tricks to stop those nagging voices and say, I'm not going to play this game. So, I gave you hopefully awareness of what's going on. Your real question might now be, hey, but I want to fix myself. Okay? At least I hope. So I'll explain how they coach. I'm not saying that this is what I do, but it makes sense of how it's approached. Like this is the behavioral way of how we do that. So it has 3 elements. You need to intercept your saboteurs. I don't play this game. You need to energize your sage brain because it's a muscle. If you have been beating yourself up the whole time, we need to weaken the atrophy. Let me give a simple, non-related example. A lot of you are Gen Xers, maybe even boomers. We used to be quite good in reading maps. Driving somewhere and knowing, oh, this is where you just had a mental map in your head. Or most, okay, except my wife, but most of us had it, right? But now that's gone because I watch Google Maps and whatever. So that part of our brain atrophied. That's what I do every day. It costs me about 3 to 5 minutes a day. That's my current course for the whole year. You get a reminder on an app, and it's, oh yeah, I do some exercises. It's a lot related to mindfulness actually, and then all the time training to use your sage power. So it basically, I'll go on how that works, but basically the initial course is to fully understand how your saboteurs play havoc with you, and then over the year daily learn how to intercept it. You learn about how to do those what I call positive intelligence reps, and then every day I enter my score. You learn the sage techniques, so that's basically the first 7 weeks, and after that turn it into a habit. So that's how it works. So the core program, so I went through this, and the person who brought me into this, it's only 7 weeks. It's saboteur discovery. I gave you a little bit of that with a test, not in depth, but you have a 7-week PQ program. Typically there's accountability in it every week. And you go really, it's video based, where you realize this is how I am judging myself, and this is how, for me there was a hyper-rational, hyper-achiever, hyper-controller. That's my top 3 of screwing myself over without realizing that. And then a daily focus for a full year to really make it recurring. Now, executive program, and I want to be clear, I'm not taking clients on executive things right now, but you know, stuff like this exists. So the first part is that 7-week program here, and then they basically every quarter pick one topic that they want to work on one-on-one with a coach. I can refer you if you want somebody to really work on something. I see dramatic. So what it is, you see these are your the amount of time that your saboteur thoughts are in power. In green is the time you switch to sage, basically. I can say when you go through that initial program, your saboteurs really weaken very quickly. Because you realize it's simple. I'll give you some examples of what I had to go through. Some eye-opening things. We have a carrot and a stick, right? Well, can you change behavior by punishing unwanted or by rewarding good behavior? And I think we all know the answer. Of course you can. Question is, how does it work different? So your judge loves to punish. And it typically has short-term results. But what you pay for is stress and unhappiness in your life. That's the stick. Rewards is preferred by your sage. It's slower, typically more lasting. I am not saying that sometimes a punishment is not needed. Sometimes, again, especially when there are threatening situations, you might have to go for the short-term result. But I want you to realize that's what the difference is, where it came from, and why one long-term was more successful than the other. But here is the shocker for me. Hey, I know that, I'm a coach. You need to reward people better. So I would sit with a client and we would come with a big reward. If our employees would hit this, they would get a $10,000 bonus at the end of the year. A lot of money for them, right? True. Okay, you were wrong very well. But then on a moment by moment, you sucked, you failed. And you saw people beat up themselves. I again didn't do it and I again screwed up. So a whole year they're under the influence of the judge and the saboteurs. And guess who is stronger? And that explains why sometimes offering big rewards over a longer period is just not working. You do need short-term positive reinforcement. Otherwise, well, what's stronger? Every day to be reminded that you suck and you failed, and or maybe have a big reward after a year. So that was an eye-opener for me. This was another very interesting exercise where you make fun of your own thought patterns. So I called my judge worm, and instead of saying to myself, I don't think I can do that, I would say, my judge or my worm says that I'm going to fail at this. And the immediate way how you remove power by making a caricature and no longer talking about I am going to fail at it, no, my judge says I'm going to fail at it, makes defangs a lot of these things. And again, these were just all type of trickery. Lastly, this is an interesting thing. I said it to people before. In a couple of monasteries in France, they did for hundreds of years. The nuns were writing diaries, daily, whatever, notions. And so they come from the same gene pool, eat the same food, have the same environmental circumstance, right? They would write in their daily diary what happened that day. The nuns that were positive lived 15% longer than the ones who wrote negative things, dominantly. In other words, that's 10 years of their life. Stress, conflict, suboptimal decisions, that's what it does to you. Yeah, fascinating. So, if you want to explore this, let me get to a conclusion quickly. I told you I'm not really trying to win business here, but I can refer, if you want to have the full thing, somebody that works with you for a year or whatever, I can arrange that. Also, why is it going back? I did a core program myself and I've run it. I'm impressed by the results. If you want to go totally alone, it's for sale for $1,000. But I thought, can I do something for neXco? And interestingly enough, the person I am now working with 4 days a week with this company, it's a client that I saw stall out. He was doubling his business every year. And he asked me to come on board. And I said, if I can play with AI the whole time, then I will. And so I did. Because I need to learn as a coach what's, you know, I already told at neXco, every administrative function, at least 50% can be replaced by AI. I'm convinced of it now that I work with it. So I needed that. So, but it's because of that program that I pushed myself to do this. Anyway, so you can do that, or he's accepting that I would run an accountability thing. Full disclosure, I pay $500 for it because I'm a certified coach in it. I would sell it for $750 for people here. I'm fine with running it one time if there are enough people. I think it's for the impact on your life. I suggest you do it. Again, I'm not insulted if you don't do it. But that would be, it's 7 weeks, fairly intense, and then you have an app that reminds you every day for a full year. Today, and you can focus in on either saboteurs or sage things and whatever. That's something I can do. I just wanted to realize, so my life has changed. I can say that I'm way happier. Despite doing 2 jobs at once now, I barely stressed. And my relationship with my lovely alter ego has improved because I learned that I was hyper-rational. I was not paying enough attention to her emotions. And I learned day-to-day tricks to actually do that for her, because I had to ask myself, who do I want to be for her? What does she want from me? It's things like that anyway. Yeah, that's basically the message I wanted to give to you.